Muy buenas tardes. El Museo de Artes Visuales MAVI agradece vuestra presencia e interés por conocer y escuchar al filósofo y curador alemán Dieter Roelstraete, quien, entre otras actividades, es parte del equipo curatorial de Documenta 14. Filósofo de profesión, exdirector de la revista After All y cofundador de Fr. David, Roelstraete ha publicado extensamente sobre arte contemporáneo y cultura en numerosos catálogos y revistas. Dieter se explayará sobre su práctica curatorial, la escritura y la unión entre arte y filosofía.
Gracias. Yo voy a agregar que Dieter es belga, no alemán, y que sí, es un nombre alemán, y que yo voy a ser su traductora. Si es que yo no soy traductora profesional, si es que por ahí me falla alguna palabra y alguien tiene otra mejor, levante la mano y me la regala. Dieter. Sí, yeah, you were presented well.
Okay. Yes, I'll use this one because I'm going to stand up every now and then. Yeah, maybe you should use this. So yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming, showing up. And I apologize for not being able to address you in Spanish, of course. But I trust that Camila will do a fabulous job translating. We know each other well enough for me to trust what she says. And also, I speak a little bit of Latin, so, you know, my Spanish is not so bad. Anyway, you don't have to translate, but... so I wanted to start out, I'll talk about a couple of things today about what I've done in the past as a curator, you know, a little bit what I'm currently working on, which is, of course, related to Documenta, the exhibition that will take place in Kassel in 2017 in Germany. And then I'll talk a little bit more broadly about the relationship between my training as a philosopher and what I do as a curador. But most of all, actually, I will say that I will only speak so much, and then I would actually appreciate it if there's questions from the audience at some point, because I do, I do prefer the dialogue above the monologue. So maybe, yeah.
Agradece que estén todos aquí y dice que confía en mi traducción, que nos conocemos lo suficiente como para que pueda confiar en lo que yo vaya a decir. Y él va a hablar de tres cosas hoy. Uno, de lo que ha hecho, un poco de su práctica curatorial. Después va a hablar de la tarea que tiene por delante como parte del equipo curatorial de Documenta 14, que se realizará en Kassel en el 2017. Y luego también va a hablar ampliamente de la relación entre filosofía y curaduría. Pero si bien son tres temas a abordar, va a tratar de hacerlo más o menos breve para que la mayor cantidad de tiempo la pasemos en diálogo. Dieter, cuando estábamos organizando su visita a Chile, me pidió tener esta instancia. Él quería un poco regalar algo que también algunos de aquí le habían dado, que es una experiencia de conocer Chile a través de sus ojos y además poder usar esta instancia pública para seguir informándose sobre las visiones de ustedes en el público.
Good. Thanks. So, the first image, which is it's a famous painting. It's Raphael, of course, the School of Athens. And I use that to kind of start off with because it's an amazing painting. It features the artist himself, famously, Raphael. This is in the Vatican. This is the door to the Pope's quarters, I think. Anyway, what I really like about this painting is so the central feature of the painting is these two figures. The school of Athens is, of course, the school of Plato, and his most famous student, Aristotle. And the drama of this painting is kind of encapsulated in this moment. And Plato is pointing upwards, he's pointing his finger upwards. You know, he's of course the father of idealism as a philosophical school, and idealism holds that the real truths of the world are in the upper realm, the ideas, right? So he's kind of pointing upwards to point towards the reality in which the real concepts of the world reside. And then his student Aristotle is pointing his hand downward toward the earth, reminding his teacher that actually the reality resides in the world with us. And I think it's just a beautiful painting that kind of, for me, sums up in a very nice way what art and philosophy can do with each other. And maybe it's the pixels here, but it looks a little bit like Plato is holding a laptop. Which I had never noticed before. So he's holding a laptop and pointing upwards to the virtual and the digital, and Aristotle is holding a book and pointing downwards to the analog, the physical, the real, the worldly, the terrestrial. So yeah.
Comienza con esta obra de Rafael de la Escuela de Atenas, que es una obra en donde, bueno, primero señala algunas cosas de por qué esta obra es tan especial. Aparece el artista mismo en una esquina, además una puerta que sería hacia el cuarto del Papa, se señala una afuera, hacia la religión, y el drama principal de la obra son estas dos figuras que aparecen ahí, que son Platón y Aristóteles. Platón apunta hacia el cielo, el padre del idealismo, haciendo notar que la verdad de la realidad estaría arriba, en el mundo de las ideas. Mientras que Aristóteles apunta hacia la tierra diciendo, no, aquí está la realidad. Dieter nota en este momento que pareciera que Platón tiene bajo su brazo un computador, un laptop personal, mientras que Aristóteles tiene un libro, lo análogo versus lo digital.
And then, of course, this is the real hero, in a way, of the painting, this Diogenes, the father of cynicism, who is blissfully unaware of what's happening here, and he's reading a letter, it looks like. Anyway, yeah.
Ahí aparece la figura central, abajo es Diógenes, que sería el padre del cinicismo y que está totalmente despreocupado de todo lo que pasa a su alrededor leyendo una carta.
This may be an iPad, but I don't think so. So anyway, for me, you know, as a philosopher looking at art, I think there's something nice here in, you know, this foundational dialectic between the ideal and the real, which in a way, for me, the work of art is about. And it's kind of funny, of course, because I was here earlier today and I saw two paintings by Juan Dávila, and they're gone, I guess. So we have something else, a digital image. So, yeah.
Esta obra la elige para empezar porque también habla de esa relación entre filosofía y arte y de esa dialéctica fundacional de la filosofía que es entre lo real y lo ideal y que el arte es capaz de retratar también. De hecho, hoy día cuando paseo por la exhibición estaban dos obras de Juan Dávila aquí colgadas y ahora no están, está lo digital también.
Yeah. So I apologize to Juan Dávila. Anyway, so firstly to talk a little bit about Documenta, which is why I came to Chile. So Documenta, as you know, you would be aware of perhaps, or so I assume, or I hope, I don't know, is you know, a very, you know, a major art event that is organized in Kassel in Germany every 5 years. So it's a little bit like the Olympics of the art world. And there's some people today here who already heard me talk, so I'm going to apologize for repeating myself. But anyway, so Documenta 14, the 14th edition of Documenta, is taking place in 2017 in 2 cities at the same time. And this is the first time actually in the history of the exhibition that this is the case on this scale. And the 2 cities in which the exhibition will take place are Kassel, as usual, the home of Documenta, but then also Athens, Athena, in the capital of Greece, which is of course also why I started with an image of the Escuela de Athena. And Documenta 14 does not have a title, it does not have a subtitle, but there is a motto for the exhibition, which is learning from Athens. ¿Cómo llamas?
Aprendiendo de Atenas.
Aprendiendo de Atenas. So, yes. Anyway.
Okay. Claro, ahora va a pasar a hablar de Documenta 14, de Documenta, que supone o espera que conozcan qué es, pero igual hace una breve descripción. Esta gran exhibición que se realiza en Kassel, Alemania, cada 5 años y que en su siguiente versión, la número 14, será por primera vez en la historia de la exhibición dividida entre 2 ciudades, Kassel, su casa, pero también Atenas, que es la razón por la cual comienza con la imagen de Rafael y la Escuela de Atenas. La Kassel 14 no tiene título ni subtítulo, sino que este slogan, este motto, que es Learning from Athens, aprendiendo de Atenas.
Aprendiendo de Atenas. And so what is to be learned from Athens? So why Athens? Why, por qué Atena? Yeah. Who has been to Kassel ever? I mean, there's somebody here who showed in Kassel, I believe, exhibited in Kassel. So it's not famous for being beautiful or for being charming. And of course, Athena is kind of known for being beautiful and charming. So this is a little bit the basic structural ingredient of Documenta 14, the juxtaposition or the contrast between these 2 cities. And the most important, there's 2 things that are important to explain why Athens, porque Athena. The first reason, of course, has to do with the fact that Europe is in a deep economic, which is where I'm from, is in a deep economic crisis, which is really a global crisis, or it's part of the global economic crisis. But Europe is in a deep economic crisis because of the fraught relationship between Germany on the one hand and Greece on the other. So in many ways, by choosing to plant the exhibition in Athens as well as Kassel, the director of Documenta, Adam Szymczyk, my superior, has of course chosen to make the global economy an important feature in a way, in terms of content of the next Documenta. So that's the first thing. Yeah.
Entonces, bueno, primero pregunta quién ha estado en Kassel. Aparece ahí arriba en la postal. Kassel no es conocida realmente por ser una ciudad bella o encantadora, versus la ciudad de Atenas, que es justamente por eso que se conoce, por su belleza y su encanto. Entonces aquí están estas 2 ciudades que son la base fundamental de esta dicotomía que se trabajará en Documenta 14. Ahora la pregunta, ¿por qué Atenas? ¿O qué podemos aprender de Atenas? Se refiere en primera instancia a la situación que vive Europa en este momento de una crisis económica profunda. Una crisis que, si bien es europea, que es el lugar de origen de Dieter, es también una crisis global. Entonces, el director artístico de Kassel para Documenta 14, Adam Chimchik, decide tomar la economía global y su crisis como eje central de la próxima Documenta.
Camila, you are going to know everything about this exhibition, and perhaps we should hire you. So that's the first thing. The global economy, not obviously as a subject, but as a framework. And then the second thing is very important, which has to do a little bit with north-south dynamics, east-west dynamics, you know, the compass, the classic story of center and periphery. Athens is I mean, there's many differences. Kassel has 200,000 inhabitants. Athens has 4 million. But Athens, what's important is of Greece, is the major gateway for huge numbers of immigrants from Asia and the Middle East specifically, who enter Europe every year, every week, every month, every day. So Athens is a little bit the door to Europe. I mean, it's very ambiguous, because in many ways it is considered to be the cradle of democracy, which is thought of as a very European concept. But it's also on the edge of Europe in that it is the gateway to Europe for migrant populations. Yeah.
Entonces, claro, la segunda razón de por qué Atenas junta a Kassel tiene que ver con la dinámica norte-sur, con la este-oeste, con la dicotomía centro-periferia, por supuesto. En Kassel hay 200.000 habitantes versus los 4 millones que hay en Atenas. Atenas se considera la puerta o la compuerta hacia Europa, desde Asia y el Medio Oriente. Es por esa puerta por la que pasan miles de inmigrantes al año. Entonces, mirar esta puerta que une estos dos polos es algo que está en el centro de este documento. Ahora, eso puede ser un poco ambiguo aún, pero también está el concepto de que Atenas es la cuna de la democracia, que vendría a ser un concepto que se considera principalmente europeo. Entonces, el mirar esa puerta. Yeah.
And choosing to stage Documenta in Athens in a way is taking Documenta away from the comfort of Central Europe and the comfort of, you know, Fortress Europe, and really open the doors of Documenta to the world. And in that sense, Documenta 14 does not only learn from Athens, but also learns from previous Documenta editions that were equally, you know, globally informed, and for whom the globalization of the art world was a fact that is not, you know, that can no longer be denied.
Entonces, escogiendo sacar a Documenta de su casa, de Kassel, y abriéndola al mundo a través de Atenas, también se desplaza Documenta de su comodidad en el centro de Europa. Claro que no es la primera Documenta que va a haberse hecho cargo de una escena globalizada del arte. Entonces, también es un reconocimiento a que Documenta ya tiene un historial de mirar el arte más allá de Europa.
Because I always like to get a little bit personal during these talks, that's my house. I mean, not the whole thing, I should say, no, but yes, I'm going. Yeah, I mean, in a couple of months' time, I'm also traveling around the world right now because I don't have a house. I'm homeless. I'm a Yes, I'm a homeless person. I'm waiting for this apartment to be empty up top. And this is the house that used to be the home of the Los Hermanos Grimm. Not bad. So, yeah.
Entonces ahora, como a mí siempre me gusta ponerme un poquitito personal, les voy a mostrar aquí una foto de mi casa. Claro, no es la casa completa, sino que de hecho es mi futura casa, porque ahora estoy en tránsito desde Chicago, de donde vivía hasta hace un par de semanas, ya que se ha dedicado desde que dejó el museo hasta esta parte de viajar el mundo comenzando su investigación para Documenta. Y el departamento de más arriba va a ser su nueva residencia y esta fue en algún momento la casa de los hermanos Grimm.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been doing in recent years at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, which is where I used to live until recently and where I used to work until recently. And I'm going to be kind of brief about this. This is the cover of a catalog that I'm working on right now, and it is going to accompany an exhibition that is opening in July, and it's called The Freedom Principle. Experiments in Art and Music 1965 to now. And it's an exhibition that is kind of based on musical history, which is one thing that I kind of just very quickly want to give along to everyone here or whoever, my audience in Argentina. I think that tomorrow I'm going to be, this talk is going to be streamed. So for me, art is part of a cultural complex that also includes music and literature and dance and, you know, like a really complex system of cultural expressions. And, you know, this is one of the exhibitions that I've been working on in the last couple of years that really kind of tends to that idea that, you know, for me, like for instance here, I did not come to Chile to just look at visual art in the narrow sense. I'm here to learn about, you know, the country obviously and its history, but, you know, about culture in the general sense. And Chicago is a city that has an amazing musical history, which is something that I've long been interested in. Yeah. So let's. Yeah.
Entonces ahora le voy a hablar muy brevemente de lo que he estado haciendo los últimos 3 años en Chicago, donde fui curador en jefe. Aquí les muestro la tapa de un catálogo en el cual estoy trabajando en este momento, de una exhibición que va a inaugurar en julio de este año. Se llama The Freedom Principle, el principio de la libertad, y es una exhibición que mira la historia de la música. Aprovecha de decirnos que para él el arte es la verdad es para él un sistema más complejo de interrelaciones entre danza, música, artes visuales. Su mirada curatorial no se enfoca solamente en las artes visuales. Y su venida a Chile también ha reflejado eso. Él no venía a Chile solo a mirar objetos de arte o la historia del arte en Chile, sino que a encontrarse igualmente con una cultura más amplia, visual y auditiva y del cuerpo. Y así ha sido.
Yeah, and in fact, it's very interesting that we're in this space today because earlier Pedro Montes, whose works, you know, whose collection we're finding ourselves in, gave me a little tour of the show, and of many artists here who are all Chilean, he said that, you know, they were also poets or are also poets. And, you know, one of the things that I've discovered, I knew a little, but now I really know is, yes, I mean, this very deep relationship between poetry in particular and the visual in this part of the world. And this is something that I think is, you you know, a hugely important element of wealth in a culture. I mean, interdisciplinarity is such a fashionable word. It's just complexity, I think, more than anything else.
Algo que no dije es que la exhibición sobre la que nos va a seguir hablando tiene que ver con también esta historia musical, particularmente en Chicago, que es una ciudad tan rica con respecto a esa historia. Pero hace mención a un tour que recibió hoy día en la mañana de Pedro Montes, dueño de la colección que está aquí en exhibición, y cómo Pedro fue señalándole que muchos de los artistas aquí expuestos también son poetas o tienen una relación con la palabra escrita, y que Dieter ya sabía esto, pero ha sido un gran descubrimiento en sus días acá en Chile ver esta unión tan profunda que tienen algunos de nuestros creadores, y que él lo considera realmente la riqueza cultural más grande que puede tener una cultura, un país, y que es compartida con algunos de los otros países del Cono Sur, de Latinoamérica. Y hace mención a que no es necesariamente una interdisciplinaridad, palabra tan de moda, sino que aquí pareciera responder a otra cosa.
Okay, so that's me. Not important. Let's move to this very important exhibition. I mean, for me, very important. The Way of the Shovel, Art as Archaeology, which is a show that I organized at the MCA Chicago in November 2013, so a year and a half ago. Let me see. Let me just very quickly go through the images.
Nos va a hablar ahora de una exhibición que hizo hace un año y medio en el museo, que fue una exhibición muy importante para él, que se llama The Way of the Shovel.
El camino del
de la
pala.
El camino de la pala. El camino de la pala.
We talked about this yesterday. I already had a studio visit in which I talked about this. Sebastian, I hope I don't bore you. So, anyway, The Way of the Shovel was an important exhibition for me because it's based on an essay I wrote. And it's actually the first, well, it's not the first time, but it was the most, in my opinion, most successful application of the ideas first formulated in an essay as a philosopher, as a theorist. So the application of those ideas onto the terrain of art, which is difficult, or you know, ambivalent, problematic, because there is, of course, a sense or an extent to which, if you start an exhibition with an essay, or if an exhibition is born from an essay, it's inevitable that in many ways what the exhibition will amount to be a couple of years later is a little bit of an illustration. So there's an element of instrumentalization of art to kind of, you know, to illustrate, illuminate a certain thesis. But anyway, what's interesting about this show, I'll give the word to you right away, is that the essay was written in 2009 and the exhibition was made in 2013. So there was a very long period for me to think about the relationship between the exhibition and the essay.
¿Por qué él considera que esta exhibición es importante para él sobre todo? Es porque nace de un ensayo que él escribió, un ensayo que fue capaz de aplicar las ideas que formuló en este ensayo fueron aplicadas en esta exhibición. Ahora, ese es un terreno muy complejo dentro de la curaduría porque se suele caer inevitablemente en que una exhibición sea ilustrativa de ideas. Y ahí se instrumentaliza al artista, a la obra. En este caso, al parecer nos va a contar que algo fue distinto, pero parte mencionando que Este ensayo lo escribió en el 2009 y la exhibición se realizó en el 2013. O sea, ya habrían muchos años entre medio.
And so there's an element in which, as a curator, because I like to make group shows. I'm not a solo exhibition person, really. I like to make group shows. For me, group shows are forms with which I can express a certain idea I have of a certain series of ideas. But of course, if you group shows that are based on a thesis, on a theory, are always going to be somehow instrumentalizing the work of art of the artists that you work with. And what you have to do as a curator, I think, is just be honest to the artists that you're going to instrumentalize them. You ask them, or you basically ask their permission. What you ask them is, can I use your artwork to, lend weight to a thesis?
Dieter se considera curador más bien de exhibiciones colectivas. Esta es la forma que le gusta, es a través de esta forma, la exhibición grupal, en la que él puede dar cuerpo a ideas, teorías de él. Ahora, volviendo al tema de la instrumentalización, es claro que eso sucede en ese formato. Cómo él lo aborda es derechamente transparentándolo, siendo honesto con los artistas, preguntándoles, ¿puedo yo usar tu obra para dar cuerpo a una idea, a una teoría?
And no one has ever refused.
Nadie nunca ha renunciado.
Because they're good ideas mostly. But there's also an element, when as a philosopher or as a theorist or as a writer, when you when you reach the point where you need an artwork or you need an artist to help you articulate what you're thinking about, it also means that you kind of acknowledge the limits of thinking and writing.
Como teórico, como escritor, también cuando llegas al momento en el que necesitas una obra o un artista para que te ayude a encarnar tu idea, es porque estás reconociendo que también el medio que elegiste, la escritura o las ideas, tienen sus límites.
So now this exhibition was called The Way of the Shovel, El Camino de la Pala, on the archaeological imaginary in art, and the subtitle is Arte como Arqueología. And so it's an exhibition that looked at archaeology as a master metaphor for a number of contemporary art practices that have to do with historical research. And it came out of the observation I made that at some point in the 2000s, I encountered more and more artists who were talking about what they did in terms of excavation, of digging, of revealing traces of the past. So it's this constant echoes that I heard of the language of archaeology that led me to think, that led me in a way to this exhibition, which is really an exhibition that looks at art as a form of history telling, of historiography.
Esta exhibición, entonces, El Camino de la Pala, Art as Archaeology, busca, que es una exhibición que mira la arqueología como una metáfora del proceso de investigación histórico. Y surgió en Dieter a través de muchos encuentros con artistas a principios I didn't get the dates. It was 2000? Yeah. claro, alrededor de los 2000, en donde hablaba con artistas sobre sus obras y muchos de ellos usaban palabras como desenterrar, revelar, palabras que vienen más bien del campo de la arqueología. Entonces fue este uso del lenguaje de la arqueología para describir prácticas artísticas que lo llevó a pensar en la arqueología como una metáfora que habla de la historicidad del arte.
And so in a way, the idea here is that the art world, the world of museums and galleries and institutions and studios and fairs, in the last 20 years has become a little bit like the History Channel. And this looks like the logo of the History Channel, but it's actually a sculpture by an artist from Chicago, Sybren Versteeg, not very well known. But this for me is kind of like it's almost like the logo of the show. It's the logo of the History Channel, the television channel. But it kind of also points to this notion that the museum is a sort of History Channel, an other History Channel. Typically, it's the History Channel that you go to find out about the forgotten, the marginalized, the overlooked, the forbidden, all of these things.
La idea general de la exhibición es que el mundo del arte, las ferias, las galerías, los museos, se han convertido de alguna manera en el canal de la historia. Él se refiere específicamente a un canal de televisión que la mayoría debe conocer, que se llama The History Channel. De hecho, aquí nos muestra el logo de The History Channel, pero que es una escultura hecha por un artista residente en Chicago, cuyo nombre aparece ahí. Y, entonces el mundo del arte que se estaría convirtiendo, el museo que se convierte en este canal de la historia. Sí, of course. Pero las otras historias, las historias prohibidas, las historias enterradas, las historias que no se muestran.
And I'm going to go through a couple of images very fast, and one of them is going to look familiar. But I want to, so now my theory is that artists' interest in history is something that took off tremendously after the event depicted in this painting by Gabriel Rosco. Because in many ways, and this is not an original thought of mine, but in many ways I think that the events of 9/11, 2001, not 1973, but the events of 9/11, 2001, in a way impressed upon the global intelligentsia the notion that history was not over, but that it had come back with a vengeance. And so for me, this kind of this increased enthusiasm for historical research that is so typical of much contemporary art is something that really took shape after this event in a way, which marked the return, the very violent return of history.
Entonces la teoría expuesta en esta muestra es que el interés de los artistas por esta historia, por la arqueología y el uso de este lenguaje del desenterramiento y el contar la historia, la verdad es que se prende, se enciende después del evento que aparece aquí representado en la obra de Orozco, la caída de las torres, el 2011. ¿Por qué? Porque este evento lo que produce es la sensación de que la historia no se ha acabado, sino que vuelve la historia con venganza por sobre nosotros o hacia nosotros.
And Because, in many ways, I think that if you kind of think about the 90s in certain parts of the world, especially, Europe and North America, the Clinton years, they were in many ways the years of forgetting and of oblivion. The fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the apparent triumph of global capitalism. It really felt during much of the 90s that history in a way was over. And so this moment in a way kind of called a halt to that. But, well, yeah, maybe say.
Porque si es que pensamos en los 90, pareciera ser que los eventos que sucedieron ahí, la caída del muro de Berlín, la desilusión, o sea, el disolvimiento de la Unión Soviética, todo apunta a que la historia se está acabando. Pero
but of course, I mean, there's this notion of the end of history and the return of history. The end of history sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, and then the return of history in 2001 is also something that I have to be aware is a provincial optic, because when you say 9/11, it also means this, of course. And just today I went to see as I said, it's my first ever visit to Santiago, and today my co-host Pedro had graciously offered me to show me around the historical city, so I saw this building, and so which was an important thing for me to do, because it also reminds me of the provincialism of the view that I inhabit. Yeah.
Por supuesto que estos eventos que vendrían a dar la noción de que la historia se está acabando, también delatan lo provinciano de la mirada de Dieter sobre estos temas, porque son eventos que suceden en su mayoría en el norte y que no dan cuenta de otra historia y de otra memoria. Claramente la caída de las torres, el mismo 11 de septiembre, el nuestro, da un vuelco a esa idea de la relación entre memoria y historia. Hoy día tuve la oportunidad de visitar La Moneda y de nuevo lo hace sentir lo restringida y que es su mirada.
And I think that's an important element of curatorial work that I am interested in, decentralization and destabilization. Yeah.
Eso es algo importante para él como corazón del trabajo curatorial, es desestabilizar y descentralizar la mirada.
So anyway, just a couple more images from The Way of the Shovel, El Camino. This is an installation by an American artist, Mark Dion, North America. It's so annoying when you say an American artist, a US artist, a Yankee artist. Mark Dion, a New Yorker, who is well known for his archaeological excavations. And basically what I asked him to do, an exhibition like The Way of the Shovel is, you can't, it's impossible to exclude Mark Dion, so he had to be in it. But I wanted to do something a little bit creative, and rather than commission an excavation from Mark, which is what he usually does, and he's been doing it for 20 years, I asked him to make an installation with his favorite shovels.
Aquí ahora les voy a mostrar un par de imágenes de obras que estaban en esta exhibición, El Camino de la Pala. Aquí hay una obra de Mark Dion, un artista americano, y repara sobre el hecho de ser americano. Quizás mejor llamarlo un artista yankee o neoyorquino, pero bueno, Mark Dion, muy conocido, un artista que cuando trabajas sobre el tema de la arqueología no puedes excluir, pero él quiso trabajar con Mark de una forma un poco distinta. Se le suele a Mark comandar que él haga una excavación y luego represente esto dentro del museo. En este caso, Dieter le pidió que por favor expusiera sus palas favoritas.
And so basically, and what he did, which is kind of amazing, is that